What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Motivate, Grind, Succeed, the podcast. I am Rasean, your host, as well as your favorite internet neurotransformation coach. And today's topic is going to be creating your future and why you need to stop dwelling on the past. And as a very simple answer to that, living and dwelling on the past and living in the past, it hinders our personal growth. Now, the brain, as I've said many times before, the brain is a fantastic tool when it helps you to survive, but not necessarily helping you to thrive. And why is that? It's because the brain really lives and thrives off of past experiences. And the reason why is because, again, the brain is trying to protect us based on past experiences, past knowledge, information that it already has. It tries to piece and parse those things together to allow us to, again, survive. And so it's using the information to help us to avoid future danger. So an example would be like avoiding lakes after an alligator attack. It doesn't have to be a specific lake. It can just be lakes in general. Now, it'll be varying degrees of this. So, for example, if you heard that there was 25 alligator attacks at Lake X, you're probably not going to go to that lake X at all, and you're probably going to be a little bit wary of lakes in general. That's the brain doing its best to help you, again, to survive. Another good example is a sparring match. If any of you all watch any kind of combat sports or anything like that, you'll notice that sparring matches are a fantastic demonstration of the brain survival mechanism in full effect, real time. How is that so? When two fighters get together in the ring and they start boxing it out, right? They start squaring up with each other. A lot of times you will see, and in fact, not even a lot of times, pretty much every time, you will see them essentially feel each other out the first round. They're not really going hard. They're trying to see what the other person does. What's their fighting style? What do they do? They're trying to understand that, because the first round is literally the brain trying to absorb information. Okay, if I step this way, what does that person do? If I fake a punch, what do they do here? If I do a shuffle step here, what do they do? If I throw a little kick, what do they do then? They're trying to feel the other person out to understand how it is that they fight. How do they interact? What do they fall for? Are they experienced? Are they not? They're trying to get all of that information when they're starting off their fighting. So when the second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round come around, they now have much more information to go off of based on patterns that they saw, the brain recognized, processed, and they can use that to their advantage. So an analogy that I want to bring up and how this relates to our personal development is driving down the road. So have you ever been in a car? I'm assuming you have been in a car or you drive a car. There is a reason why the windshield of the car is bigger than all three of the rear view mirrors combined. Because living in the past is like driving without that windshield at all. You have no idea what's coming up ahead of you. You're just here in the here and now, hoping, praying that something happens with no actual plan in place. And you can't make a plan because you're not actively looking forward. So you see how this could become a problem in a very literal and a very figurative sense. Literal, because if you have no windshield, do we need to go into that? I don't think we do. I think you could piece two and two together on that one. But in a figurative sense, if you're not looking ahead on where you want to go, you have no plan, you have no goal, you're just living life day in, day out, essentially zombified, then what in the world are you going to be doing in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? You're just going to wait for something to land in your lap? Because if that's your goal right now, I hope something lands in my lap. Chances are it's not going to land in your lap. You're going to be saying that 25, 30 years from now, and still nothing will have landed in your lap because you did nothing. You did nothing to actually accomplish what it is you wanted to accomplish. And so the impact on the personal growth that I want to definitely impart upon you is that living in the past allows us to know ourselves, right? We know what we can do. We know what we can't do. We know our capabilities, our limitations, our strengths, our weaknesses. We know that. But in order to learn ourselves, we need to live in the present and plan for the future. If you want to learn what you can do, what you have the capacity to do, you need to have a plan. You need to look forward. You need to set goals that kind of scare you, that will push you in order to become that better individual. With that, how do we switch from dwelling on the past to dwelling on the present and focusing on the future. The first thing you can do is, since we understand that knowing yourself is past based and learning yourself is future based, you can just stop knowing and start learning. Simply said, but difficult to implement. This goes into the whole concept of knowledge versus wisdom. So knowledge is essentially saying I can do something or I can explain something, but wisdom is being able to say, does that thing work or does it not work? So a tangible example is swimming. Knowledge is saying, I know I can or I cannot swim. So let's say you cannot swim. Knowledge is saying, I can't swim. You are literally a fish out of water when it comes to a human in water. You can't swim. Okay, cool. That's knowledge. Now, learning is saying, I take it upon myself to go take a swim class. Will I go ahead and maybe find a public pool and just immerse myself in the deep end and learn the basics of swimming? Will I go onto the internet and research ways to learn how to swim and try and fail and figure out what works, what doesn't? That's the wisdom. Because there's a reason why, if you look up how to do something on the internet, there's a reason why there's 10, 20, 30,000 different ways to do something, because that's a lot of knowledge, but wisdom is knowing which one or two actually work. If you're in the space, this is why people pay for coaching, because it's one thing to just go ahead and find all this knowledge and then piece these things together yourself, but it's a lot more intuitive. It's a lot more helpful. It's a lot faster for sure to just find somebody who's already done it, who has that wisdom, and then be able to just work with that. Now, am I saying that every single coach is going to be perfect for you? No, but it definitely makes it a whole lot easier. Instead of having to parse through all the information that's on the internet, now you just have a couple people who find things that work for you, and then it's a whole lot smaller pool of information to pull from. The reason why I also recommend this is because, yes, knowledge is important. Don't get me wrong. Knowledge is very important. You need to know what you got to do before you go doing stuff. You can't just throw darts in the dark. But at the same time, this is where analysis paralysis can then come into play. If you have 1,000 pieces of information from the internet, not only do you have to parse through what works and what doesn't for you, you have to parse through if it even works at all, or if someone's just spouting some stuff because they have a platform. If you have someone like a coach or something, they might give you 2 to 3 pieces and say, work with that. Now, instead of having 1,000 pieces, you have 3. That's it. You only got 3 things to work with. Now it's up to you if you want to go look up some more stuff and then start adding analysis paralysis to your plate. But if you just have the 3 that the coach tells you, voila. Now it's that much easier, because then you can, again, put it to practice what I'm saying. Try, fail, try, fail, try, fail. Boom. There we go. We have 3 try fails, legitimate tries, that is, legitimate tries, legitimate fails, legitimate lessons that you learn. Now we could try some other stuff now. So that's the first thing. Stop living in the past by saying, I know what I can do. I know what I can't do. Start asking yourself, what would I be able to do if failure was impossible? What could I do? If I want to leave a legacy 10 years from now, what do I need to do in order to do that? And part of that comes with visualization. Now, I'm not a person who's going to just say visualization, manifest. I'm just going to write this down and put it on my vision board and just hope and pray that this is going to come true one day. No. If you're going to visualize and have your little dream board or whatever, you need to be taking action towards doing that. So there's no problem in my book with visualizing the future that you want, because that allows you to put your brain, prime it to put it in that headspace of, this is something that is possible for me. Okay. So there's no problem with that. In fact, so much so that when you start visualizing, and you can look this up yourself too, when you start visualizing these positive imagery, when you start putting yourself in the position of, when I say you want to live in this house, you want to have this car, visualizing your perfect life, the brain has when you make it as vivid as possible, this is why I preach to make it vivid. When you make it as vivid as you possibly can, the brain starts having a very difficult time, almost impossible time, distinguishing from real versus imagined experiences. This is why when you can visualize it, now, yes, you're not physically living it, but like I said, you're priming the brain for that type of experience. You're priming the brain to do that. That's why in past episodes, I've said you don't want to talk in absolute. You don't want to say, I can't do this. You want to say, how can I? You're opening up the brain to being able to have that creativity. When you're visualizing your dream future, you're visualizing what you want to become. You're giving your brain the capability to naturally start asking the question, how can I? If you want to be a public speaker, for example, then how can I become a better public speaker? You're not going to say, I can't become a public speaker. You're going to visualize yourself on a stage, giving a speech. Even if you're nervous now, you're going to visualize yourself being fearless up on stage, giving that talk, applauding crowds, all this kind of stuff. And then you're going to reverse engineer it and say, how can I get to that state? And that is how you're going to start to see progress. And this kind of leads into the last point, which I won't spend very long on, and that's intentional living. You want to ensure that as you're living your life, whatever that dream life is that you want to make as many actions per day as intentional as you possibly can towards living that future. If you need to, look at your dream board, your visualization board, whatever you want to call it, to help you direct your brain towards that positive future. Again, don't have a board and just imagine stuff and say, oh, one day that'll come true. If you're taking no action on your vision board, whether it's a physical board, a mental board, whatever, if you're taking no action, throw the board away. Throw it away. Rip it off your wall, burn it to the ground, because if you're taking no action, there's no point. There is 0 point to having it. If it's just nice to look at, it's just a nice wallpaper. If you're saying one day I will have that and not taking action towards it, even in the small incremental steps, if you take no action towards it, there's no point in having that board. Throw that dream away. It's going to die. It will die. Unless you take action on it, it will die like all the rest of your good dreams and ideas. So this is your wake-up call on how to stop dwelling in the past. Literally, stop focusing on what it is that you already did. It happened to teach you a lesson. What can you do about it right now? If you can do nothing about it right now, it is time to focus on what you can change. You learned the lesson way back in past land. Use that lesson, because life has a very funny way of teaching you lessons that you thought you knew. But when it gets thrown back in your face again and again, that means the lesson was not quite learned yet. So learn the lesson from past land, implement the lesson in present land so you can have that visualized life in future land. That's what I got for you guys for today. Catch you all in the next episode. Hopefully you implement something. Hopefully you learn something. And I'll see you all in the next episode. And guys, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Motivate, Grind, Succeed, the podcast. Guys, again, if you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the show for weekly uploads. If you love what you heard, be sure to sign up for that email list. And if you hated what you heard, be sure to share it with somebody who will appreciate it. Also, if you guys want to get access to the show notes or any kind of resource or link or to anything that was referenced in this episode, be sure to check out that episode description below. You'll also find the contact information, any freebies, or any sort of thing from our little corner of the internet. Check out the episode description. It's going to be an absolute gold mine for you guys. Until next time, take care, and I will see you in the next episode.